So, in the last session, just we started about types of variables, correct? In that, static variables we covered, instance variables we discussed. Now the last part what we have to discuss, local variables, right? Keep subheading local variables, local variables. Okay, here just observe, sometimes based on programmer requirement, we have to declare variables inside a method, correct or not? Inside a method, the variables which are declared inside a method are inside a block, okay? The variable which are declared inside a method or inside a block are inside constructor, okay? The variables which are declared inside a method or inside a block or inside a constructor to meet the temporary requirements of the programmer. So such type of variables are by default considered as what? Local variables, right? Are you able to understand? Okay, this is, sir, what is local variable? The variable which is declared inside a method or inside a block or inside a constructor to meet the temporary requirements of the programmer. Such type of variables are called what? Local variables, right? Now, do you know where we can access local variables? Only within the method where we declared, or within the block where we declared, or within the constructor where we declared. Are you getting? Within the method or within the block or within the constructor where we declared. Can I use the term these are temporary variables or not? Yes, because within the method only available or within the block only available, not permanent data. That's why it is also known as temporary variables, right? Temporary variable. Local variables are temporary variables, are the local variables will be stored inside a stack memory. That's why local variables also known as stack variables, right? Are you getting? Stack, because they will be stored in which memory area? Stack area. That's why local variables also known as stack variables, right? Next, suppose if I consider, sir, for int I is equal to 0, I is less than 10, I plus like, okay, SOP of I, like I'm taking. Can I use the term, is this I, is it a local variable or not? Local variable, local to for loop. Are you getting? It's a local to for loop. Okay, this is local variable, right? Now, within the for loop, available. If you come out of the for loop, automatically not available. Within the for loop available. If you come out of the for loop, automatically not available. That's why local variables, okay, are automatic variables. Sometimes available, sometimes not available. Within curly brace available. If you come out of curly brace, automatically not available. That's why local variables also known as automatic variables. Are you getting? There are multiple other words are there for local variable. Local variables also known as temporary variable or stack variables or automatic variables, right? I hope you people can aware clearly, right? Okay, add that first point. Sometimes to meet temporary requirements of the programmer, to meet temporary requirements of the programmer, we can declare variables. Sometimes to meet temporary requirements of the programmer, we can declare variables inside a method, or block, or constructor, constructor. Such type of variables are called local variables. Such type of variables are called local variables or temporary variables. Local variables are temporary variables or stack variables. Local variables are temporary variables or stack variables or automatic variables, automatic variables. Local variables are temporary variables, or stack variables, or automatic variables. Automatic variables. Automatic variables. Okay, that's all. I hope you people can aware what is local variable or what is a temporary variable. I mean, what the local variable where we can declare. Second point, just now we covered. Local variables will be stored in which memory area? Stack memory. That's why local variables also known as what? Stack variables, right? Add. Local variables will be stored. Local variables will be stored inside stack memory. Local variables will be stored inside stack memory. Okay, that's all. Are you getting? So this is. Now the third point, I mean this point is the very, very important, right? Make sure. Sir, when the local variable will be created, while executing the block in which we declare. Sir, while executing this method, or while executing this static block, or while executing constructor, or while executing this for loop. So the block in which we declare, while executing that block, local variable will be created. And when the local variable will be destroyed, once this block execution completes, sir, M1 method completes, automatically local variable will be gone. Or static block completion, local variable will be gone. So while executing the block in which we declare local variable, so at that time local variable will be created. Once the block execution completes, automatically local variable will be gone. Simple. Suppose if I call M1, and legend this one, if I call M1, local variable will be created and I will use in the next lines of the code. Once M1 method completes, automatically local variable by default will be gone. That's all. Suppose next time I call M1 method once again. M1 method next time once again. Once again a new local variable will be created. After completing this, that local variable will be gone. Suppose if I call M1 method 10 times, how many times local variable will be created? 10 times. Don't feel one time. 10 times. For every execution of that block, local variable will be created. After completing that block, local variable by default will be gone. That's why, are you able to understand? Suppose multiple threads are there. T1, T2, T3, like T1 call M1, T2 call M1, T3 call M1. For T1, one local variable. For T2, one local variable. For T3, one local variable. Are you getting? That's why, do you know, for every thread, a separate copy of local variable will be created. That's why local variables are also known as a thread safe. Also considered as thread safe. Thread safety is there. Because for every thread, a separate copy by default will be maintained, right? Are you able to understand? So anyway, local variable, when it will be created, when it will be destroyed, what is the scope of local variable? Let me summarize. Local variable will be created while executing the block in which we declare that. Once a block execution completes, automatically local variable by default will be gone. The scope of local variable is exactly same as the scope of the block in which we declared it. Okay, add. Local variables will be created. Local variables will be created. Local variables will be created. Local variables will be created while executing the block. Local variables will be created while executing the block. Local variables will be created while executing the block in which we declared it. While executing the block in which we declared it. While executing the block in which we declared it. In which we declared it. In which we declared it. Next, once a block execution completes, automatically local variable will be destroyed. Automatically local variable will be destroyed. Local variable will be destroyed. Local variable will be destroyed. Hence, 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 the scope of local variable, the scope of local variable, the scope of local variable is exactly same as the scope of local variable. Wait. The scope of local variable is the block, block. Scope of local variable is the block in which we declared it. The block in which we declared it. In which we declared it. In which we declared it. So, I hope you people now can aware what is local variable, in which memory area it will be stored, when it will be created, when it will be destroyed, what is the scope. Now, terminology is very, very clear for you people, right? Okay. Now, the next chance or the next point or conclusion, make sure. What is the next terminology? Make sure you people should have clear idea about this one. Sir, local variable, instance variable, static variable. Static variable, part of class. You are getting class level data. Instance variable, part of object. Local variable, part of method, or part of block, for loop, part of if block like. Sir, local variable, okay. So, local variable, instance variable, static variable. Instance and static variables are standard data, class level data, object level data. But local variables are not standard, temporary data. That's why JVM won't provide much support for the local variable. Sir, for instance variable, static variable, if I am not performing initialization, what will happen? JVM will provide default value. There is no such type of terminology for local variable. For local variable, compulsory we should perform initialization explicitly. Are you getting? Okay, this here. So we should do that. Okay, one thing. Next, another biggest problem with local variable, scope. So instance variable, wherever object is there, instance variable is there. Wherever class is there, static variable is there. But local variable, within if block it is available, if I will go to else part, it is not available. Or within the for loop it is available, if I will come out of the for loop it is not available. Scope related issues are dangerous for local variables, right? Take special care. So one possibility to ask the question in the exam related to scope, dangerous concept. Second possibility related to default values. Okay. First let me talk about scope. Here see this one, very important Anna. Here I am taking class test. Class test. Public static void main. Public static void main. String array args. Class test. Public static void main. Legend, don't take. String array args. Now I am taking. Here int I is equal to 0. Int I is equal to 0. For int j is equal to 0. Int j is equal to 0. J is lesser than 3 j plus plus I. J plus plus. Now I is equal to I plus j. I is equal to I plus j. Okay. System dot out dot println I dot j. Sir, can you tell what is the I value and what is the j value? What is the I and the j? I is equal to 0. For int j is equal to 0, j is less than 3, j plus plus. I is equal to I plus j, SOP of I dot j. What is the I value? What is the j value? Yes. What is the I value and what is the j value? Yes, boss. I value is 3, j value is, okay. Make sure, if I can do like this, first the code won't compile. Compiler will give left and right. I is local variable of main method. Within the main anywhere you can access, no problem. Within the main anywhere you can access. But j is local variable of for loop. local variable of for loop. Within the for loop only you can access. Outside of the for loop you can't access. That's why, sir, outside you are accessing J. What is J or where is the J? Like immediately compile time error saying cannot find the symbol. Cannot find symbol. Which symbol? Cannot find symbol. Which symbol? Variable J. Variable J. In which location? Okay. Class test. In which location? Class test. Like this I'm going to get. Are you getting, sir? Within the test class you are using some variable J. Where it is available, first let me know, then only I can compile. Because J is what? Local variable of for loop. Outside of the for loop we can't access. That's why the problem is coming. Are you getting? Scope related issues a bit dangerous for local variables, right? Next, very common question for the exam. Legend this one. Sir, I'm taking here class test. One more example, class test. Public static void main string array args. Public static void main string array args. Here I'm taking int here one main. Sir, try block I'm taking. Try block. Int J is equal to integer dot parse int. Sir, integer dot parse int to convert string to number. Integer dot parse int of ten I'm taking. Integer dot parse int of 10. But ten not a number, oral word. Immediately we are going to get what? Class cast exception. Because string to number conversion, but a string is not representing a number. That's why class number format exception. Catch number format exception. Boss, if a number format exception will come, if it is the case, can you please keep J is equal to 10? Sir, assign directly 10, not required to take conversion. And then, can you please print SOP of J? Regarding, can you please print SOP of J? If I can take like this, compiler will give left and right. You know what is the reason? Not required to keep explanation. J is local variable of try block. J is local variable of try block. So outside of the try block, sir, within the catch block how you can access, or outside of the try block how you can access. Immediately compile time error by default you are going to get here one time, here also one time. Are you able to get? Related to scope, local variables are a bit dangerous, take a bit special care. I hope you people can aware, right? Okay, so this is sometimes available, sometimes not available. This question is there in our SCJP practice book also. Compulsory possibility to ask in the exam related to scope of local variables, right? Take both examples. Take both examples clearly. Cannot find a symbol. Which is symbol? Variable J, location class test. Take clearly. Completed, right? cannot find symbol. Which symbol? Variable j. In which location? Class or test like. So scope of local variables a bit dangerous. That's why compulsory you people should have clear clarity about local variables. Completed, right? Okay, next one. So this is one thing what you people should aware. Okay, next take a note. I mean not note, just observe. Sir, just now I covered this point. For local variables is nothing but temporary data. JVM want to provide much support for local variable. So JVM will assign default values for local variables? No. So default values, such type of concept applicable only for what? Only for instance variable, static variable, but not for local variables, right? Okay, add. For local variables, JVM for local variables, JVM won't provide default values. For local variables, JVM won't provide default values. JVM won't provide default values. Compulsory we should perform initialization. Compulsory we should perform initialization explicitly. Compulsory we should perform initialization explicitly. Explicitly. Okay. Now observe this point well. Sir, I am taking class test. Now public static void main method, string array args. Just multiple examples I want. Let me take here. Sir, class test, public static void main method, string array args. Public static void main string array args. Sir, int x. And what is this variable? This variable is local variable, because inside a method I am declaring local variable. System.out.println hello, like I am taking. SOP of hello, like this I am taking. Sir, can you tell if the code is going to compile or not? If I can take SOP of hello, is it going to compile or not? Yes or no? Sir, for local variable, we are not performing any initialization and JVM won't provide default values. Is it going to compile? 100% pakka. The code compiles or not? No. Because for local variables, JVM won't provide any default values. Compulsory we should perform initialization explicitly. Okay, that's why valid. The output we are going to get is hello. Because, sir, we didn't perform initialization, no problem. But am I using that variable? Am I using? No. Before using, we have to perform initialization. If I am not using, what is the need of performing initialization? Are you getting? So, before using, we should perform initialization, right? That's why no problem at all. Happily the output by default hello is the output we are going to get. Clear for all of you, right? Okay. Next one, keep here, just observe. Sir, I am taking class test, public static void main method, string array args. Sir, int x, local variable int x, system.out.println of x I am taking. Int x, SOP of x. Sir, can you tell, is it valid or invalid? Invalid. Immediately compile time error by default we are going to get. Are you getting? Compile time error by default we are going to get SOP of x. Compile time error saying What that comparative method we are going to get? Variable x might not have been initialized, like comparative method by default we are going to get. I hope you people can aware variable x might not have been initialized. Like, sir, can you please read our statement once again? Can you please read last point what you took? For local variables, JVM want to provide default values. Compulsory we should perform initialization explicitly before using that variable. If I'm not using, not required to perform initialization right at this point. Compulsory we should perform initialization explicitly. Continuation before using that variable. Before using that variable. That is if we are not using, then it is not required. If we are not using, then it's not required. If we are not using, then it's not required to perform initialization. If we are not using, then it's not required to perform initialization. Okay, take both examples on a side by side. Take clearly. Int x SOP of hello. The output we are going to get is hello. Class test public static void main string array args int x SOP of x. Here the comparative method variable x might not have been initialized. Variable x might not have been initialized. Might not have been initialized. Like, can I complete it right? Variable x might not have been initialized. Like, that's all, sir. There are two more examples I will discuss so that you people can aware clearly, right? Okay. So, sir, before using, we should perform initialization. If I'm not using, not required to perform initialization. Best example, I'm not using, that's why it is the valid. Now, next point here, see. Sir, I'm taking class test. Now, listen carefully about this one, class test. Public static void main method, public static void main, string array args. Public static void main string array args. Sir, can you tell what is this one, Anna? String array args, command line arguments. Now I am taking int x. Sir, I declare a local variable int x. If args dot length, greater than 0. If args dot length greater than 0, sir, if we are passing any command line arguments, so x value will become 10. If we are passing any command line arguments, x is the 10. Next, system.out.println of x. Sir, x is the 10 SOP of x. Like this I am taking. Do you know? If I can take like this, now I will ask. Compiler, can you please compile? Sir, if we are passing command line arguments, args dot length greater than 0, command line argument, x value is the 10 and print SOP of x. Now I will ask, compiler, can you please compile my code? Like, immediately compiler is going to tell, Durga, I can't compile. Array, what is the problem, man? Like, I can ask. Then the compiler is going to tell, Durga, if you are passing command line argument, what is the x value? 10. If you are not passing command line argument, what is the x value? X is initializing sometimes but not always, then but you are trying to print, then if you are not passing command and argument, then what value I have to print? That's why I can't compile like compiler is going to tell. Then I have to convince the compiler saying, array compiler, believe me, definitely at runtime I will pass command and argument. Definitely at runtime I will pass. Not required to worry. Can you please believe me and compile this code like. Then compiler is going to tell, Durga, 3 months back, very innocent person, a person with very innocent face like you, is nothing but a person came. What he told is, definitely at runtime I will pass command and arguments like he told. That's why I compile this code. But what that bloody person did is, at runtime, he didn't pass command and argument. If he didn't pass command and argument, my JVM trying to print X, but X is not having the value, then the JVM in the big trouble. Then the JVM called me, gave left and right. Because who is the assistant to the JVM? Compiler is the assistant. If the compiler is not doing the job well, then JVM will be in the trouble. That's why JVM gave left and right to me. That's why I don't want to take any risk for the sake of stupid programmers like you. You are getting? I don't want to take any risk. First, if you are not passing command and argument, what is the X value? Let me know, then only I can compile. You are getting? Then only I can compile. Then immediately compile time error we are going to get saying variable X might not have been initialized. Might not have been initialized. This is the compile time error by default we are going to get. Any doubt or any explanation is required? Okay, this is. Then my compiler not in a position to accept. What I will do here is, observe this one. Let me rewrite this code. Sir, class test public static void main string array args. Public static void main string array args. Now int x. If args dot length greater than 0. Sir, if you are passing any command and argument, what is the X value? 10. Else, what is the X value? 20. Else X value is the 20. System.out.println of X. SOP of X, like this I am taking. Sir, can you tell, if I can take like this, is the code is going to compile or not? Is it going to compile or not? Yes, if the compiler raises any error, then I will give left and right to the compiler. Because if I am passing command and argument, X is the 10. Else, if I am not passing command and argument, what is the X value? 20. Sir, my X is always initialized. Then how the compiler is going to raise error? No chance at all. Happily the code compiles fine. Now, if I can take like this, sir, Java test AB, sir, I am passing command line argument. What is the answer? Array, what is the output? 10. Because I am passing command line argument, X is the 10. Next, just Java test, that's all. I am not passing any command line argument. If I am not passing any command line argument, what is the X value? X is, if you are not passing else part, X value is nothing but what the output we will get? 20 by default. Are you getting? Take a very special care. In this case, compile time error, but there happily the code is going to compile. Now, there is some good programming practices. It is never recommended to perform initialization for local variables inside logical blocks. Logical block is nothing but if, else, like, because they may execute or they may not execute. Correct, right? At runtime, there is no guarantee it is always going to execute. Sir, if you are not passing command and argument, it won't execute. Are you getting? It's never recommended to perform initialization for local variables inside logical blocks. Clear for all of you, right? Okay, this is. But so this is the first conclusion. Second, it is highly recommended to perform initialization for local variables at the time of declaration only. Suppose if I perform initialization here like this, int x is equal to 0, Can you tell if the code is going to compile or not? Yes. So if you are not passing command and argument, what is the x value? 0. If you are not passing command and argument, if you are passing command and argument, x value is the 10. So it is highly recommended to perform initialization for local variable at the time of declaration, at least with default values. That's why connection con is equal to null. Are you getting? Connection con is equal to null, default initialization. String s is equal to null is nothing but like, why we are keeping explicitly null to overcome this type of problems only. Clear for all of you, right? Now better to take both examples. These two examples, and then I will add conclusions. Add int x, if x dot length greater than 0, x is equal to 10 SOP of x. Variable x might not have been initialized. Next, Java test A, B. What is the output by default you are going to get is 10. Next, Java test output is 20. Java test A, B, output is the 10. Java test output is 20. Completed, right? Okay. So take a note about these two conclusions. Note. First one. Note first. First one. It is not recommended. It's not recommended. Not recommended to perform initialization. It is not recommended to perform initialization. To perform initialization for local variables. It is not recommended to perform initialization for local variables. For local variables. Not recommended to perform initialization for local variables. Local variables inside logical blocks. 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 Because there is no guarantee. Because there is no guarantee. There is no guarantee for the execution of these blocks. Because there is no guarantee for the execution of these blocks. For the execution of these blocks always at runtime. Because there is no guarantee for the execution of these blocks always at runtime. Always at runtime. Because there is no guarantee for the execution of these blocks always at runtime. Always at runtime. Always at runtime. Okay. Note 2. Second note. Second point. Sir, here can I use the term? It is highly recommended. Listen. It is highly recommended to perform initialization for local variables at the time of declaration, at least with the default values. At least with the default values. Correct or not? Highly recommended to perform initialization for local variables at the time of declaration, at least with the default values. Clear for all of it? At least with the default values. What is the reason for that? Is nothing but to if I can do like this, what is the reason? So we can able to prevent this type of compile time errors, right? Because JVM want to provide default values. If you are not providing any value, if you are trying to access, maybe a problem. That's why. Okay, add. It is highly recommended. It is highly recommended. It is highly recommended to perform initialization. It is highly recommended to perform initialization for local variables. Highly recommended to perform initialization for local variables at the time of declaration. At the time of declaration. At the time of declaration. At least with the default values. At the time of declaration, at least with the default values. At least with the default values. At least with the default values. Default values. Okay, this is. I hope is a clear for all of you. Okay, this at least with the default values, right? Now the next terminology, and I take very special care about this point. Sir, there are few conclusions are there, legend. Sir, I am taking class test. Int x is equal to 10. Sir, what is this variable? Hey, what is this variable? Instance variable. Now I am taking static int y is equal to 20. What is this variable? Static variable, right? Static int y is equal to 20. Static variable. Now public static void main method string array args int z is equal to 30. What is this variable? Local variable, right? Int z is equal to 30, local variable. Do you know, if the instance variable declared as the public, we can access this variable anywhere. If the instance variable declared as the private, we can access this variable only within the class. If I access instance variable, if I declare instance variable as the default, then within the current package anywhere. If I can access, okay, instance variable as the protected. If I access instance variable as protected within the current package anywhere, but outside package only in child classes, right? You know, these are things anyway based on our modifier. Now the corresponding access by default will be there, scope by default will be there. Same rule applicable for this one also. If the static variable declared as the public, static variable declared as the private, static variable declared as the default, static variable declared as the protected, by default applicable, right? But where we can access local variable? Where we can access this local variable? Only within the method. Is it possible to access outside of the method? No. Suppose if I am taking public, can I access this local variable from outside of the method? No. The scope of local variable is already fixed. That's why public, private, protected, default, such a type of terminology not applicable for local variables. Clear, right? The only applicable modifier for local variable is final. Are you getting? The only applicable modifier for local variable is final, except that you can't use any other modifier. By mistake, if you are using any other modifier like public, private, protected, like compile time error, by default you are going to get. Is it clear for all of it? Okay, at this point, the only applicable modifier for local variables is the only applicable modifier for local variables is final. By mistake, if we are trying to apply any other modifier, any other modifier, then we will get compile time error. If we are trying to apply any other modifier, then we will get compile time error. Okay, just observe this one. Sir, I am taking class test, and I am taking class test. Here just observe public static void main method string array args. Okay, here say, sir, public int x is equal to 10. Public int x is equal to 10. Or private int x is equal to 10. Or protected int x is equal to 10. Protected int x is equal to 10. Static int x is equal to 10. Static int x is equal to 10. Next. So transient int x is equal to 10. Okay. Volatile int x is equal to 10. Sir, if I can take like this, in all these cases, do you know, we are going to get compile time error saying illegal start of expression. Are you getting? Illegal start of expression, like compile time error we will get. I hope is clear. Now what I have to do? Can I take like this one? Final int x is equal to 10. Valid or invalid? Valid or invalid? This one is nothing man, perfectly valid, no problem at all. I hope you can aware. Okay, at this point take this example. So for local variables, only final is the applicable modifier. By mistake, if you are trying to take any other modifier, compile time error by default you are going to get. Final int x is equal to 10, like illegal start of expression. Completed, right? I hope is clear. Public int x is equal to 10. Private int x is equal to 10. Protected int x is equal to 10. Static int x is equal to 10. Transient volatile. Next up, final int x is equal to 10. Illegal start of expression. Completed, right? Legal start of expression, like. Okay. Next, one more conclusion about these local variables. Okay, let me talk now. Here, see, one more conclusion. Suppose I'm taking one variable here. Sir, what is this variable? Instance variable. Sir, I'm taking one more variable. What is this variable? Static variable. Public static void main method string array args. What is this variable? Local variable, right? Okay, well, sir, now my point is, if the instance variable, if we are not declaring with any modifier, then by default it is always default. Default means where we can access within the current where. If the static variable, if we are not declaring with any modifier, then by default we can access this anywhere within the current package. So local variable, if I am not declaring with any modifier, then can I use the term, is it a default? Ayo, If it is the default, where we can access? If it is the default, where we can access? Within the current package. Can I access this Z outside of main method? Ayo, outside of main, possible or not possible? Not possible. That is, if we are not declaring with any modifier, then by default it is a default. This rule is applicable only for what? Only for static and instant, but not for local variables, right? Clear for all of you? If you are not declaring with any modifier, then by default it is a default. This rule is applicable only for instance variable and static variable, but not for local variable. Local variable scope is always fixed, the block only. Within the current package anywhere, within the class anywhere, such a type of rules are not applicable for what? Local variables, right? Take a note. If we are not declaring, not declaring with any modifier, if we are not declaring with any modifier, then by default it is a default. But this rule is applicable. This rule is applicable only for instance and static variables. Only for instance and static variables, but not for local variables. Instance and static variables, but not for local variables. That's all. Completed, right? So this is what you have to remember well. What is instance variable? What is the static variable? Local variables. Conclusions, right? Now let me summarize some more conclusions about that. Summary conclusion first. For instance and static variables, JVM will always provide default values, but for local variables, JVM won't provide default value. Before using a local variable, compulsory we should perform initialization. Summary point, right? Take a note or conclusions, like better to take conclusions. First one, conclusions. Common points about all conclusions. Okay, yeah, the first point. For instance and static variables, JVM will provide default values. For instance and static variables, JVM will provide default values. And we are not required to perform initialization explicitly. But for local variables, JVM won't provide default values. JVM won't provide default values. Compulsory we should perform initialization. Compulsory we should perform initialization explicitly. Before using that variable. Clear, right? Okay, now you people have a bit clarity. Sir, what is the instance variable, local variable, like? Second point, listen this one. Sir, instance variable, do you know, part of object, correct or not? Instance variable is the part of object. This object can be accessed by multiple threads at a time. Multiple threads at a time. The people who knows synchronization, multi-threading concept, like now you can aware. Instance variable part of object. A single object can be accessed by multiple threads. That's why instance variables are not thread safe. Thread safety is not there for instance variable because a single object can be accessed by multiple threads. Similarly, static variable is also. How many copies of static variable will be created? How many copies? Only one copy at a class level. That a single copy can be accessed by multiple threads at a time. Are you getting multiple threads at a time? That's why it is also thread safety is not there for static variables also. But local variable, do you know? I have one method. Int x is equal to 10. For every thread, a separate copy of local variable will be created. For every thread, a separate copy of local variable will be created. That's why if any modification performed by this thread won't be reflected here, or if any modification performed by this thread won't be reflected here. That's why local variables are thread safe or not thread safe. Observe the difference, right? Okay, add. Instance and static variables. Instance and static variables. Instance and static variables can be accessed by. Instance and static variables can be accessed by multiple threads. Can be accessed by multiple threads simultaneously. Can be accessed by multiple threads simultaneously. Can be accessed by multiple threads simultaneously. And hence these are not thread safe. And hence these are not thread safe. And hence these are not thread safe. Not thread safe. Not thread safe. Okay. But in the case of local variables, for every thread, a separate copy will be created. For every thread, a separate copy will be created. For every thread, a separate copy will be created. And hence local variables are thread safe. Local variables are thread safe. Local variables are thread safe. So, sir, instance variable, okay, of course. So, type of variable, just a matter of 1 minute, just observe. Type of variable is a thread safe or not? Is a thread safe or not? Sir, first category, okay, instance variables. Second one we covered. What is the second one? Static variables. Third one, what is the third one? Local variables, right? Local variable. Sir, instance variable, thread safe or not? Yes, sorry. Thread safe or not? No. But local variables are, yes, sir. Take this one. Just anyway, just in the table representation, beyond that nothing. Instance variable, type of variable is a thread safe or not? Instance variable, static variable. Instance variable, static variable, local variable. Completed, right? Next one. Sir, here observe every variable in Java. You can take any variable in Java. Compulsory either instance variable or static variable or local variable. Compulsory one of these three. Every variable in Java can be either primitive variable or reference variable. Observe this one. Sir, there are two divisions we covered. First division either primitive or reference. Second division either instance or static or local. Okay, that's why listen. Every variable in Java can be either instance variable or static variable or local variable. One of these three compulsory. Every variable in Java can be either primitive variable or reference variable. One of these. That's why. So the possible variable combinations in Java. So instance primitive or instance reference. Next, static primitive or static reference. Are you getting? Or local primitive or local reference. Are you getting? The possible types of variables in Java are is nothing but possible combinations of variables are nothing but like. Sir, let me talk a simple example right clearly. Listen this one. Sir, I am taking class test. And I am taking class test. Here int x is equal to 10. Static string s is equal to Durga. Static string s is equal to Durga. Public static void main string array args. Public static void main string array args. Int array x is equal to or int array y is equal to new int array of 3 am taken. End of this one. Sir, can you tell, just now we covered, every variable in Java should be either instance or static or local. Every variable in Java should be either primitive or reference. Can you tell what about first one? First variable, is it instance or static or local? Instance. Is it primitive or reference? Primitive. That's why the first variable is instance primitive. Correct or not? Instance primitive. Can you tell second variable, is it instance or static or local? Static. Is it primitive or reference? Primitive or reference? Reference. That's why. So static reference. Static reference is nothing but like. Next. Sir, what is this one? It is a instance or static or local? Local. Is it primitive or reference? Primitive or reference? Every array in Java is an object only. Okay, that's why reference. Sir, what is this one? Local reference. Now clear for you. Some people may ask, sir, instance variable can be primitive, or instance variable can be reference, or static variable can be primitive or can be reference like. So the various possible combinations of variables in Java are is nothing but like this is the example. I hope you people can aware. Okay, add. Next one. Every variable in Java should be either instance or static or local. Every variable in Java should be either instance or static or local. Either instance or static or local. Either instance or static or local. Instance or static or local. Next, second one. Every second one. Every variable in Java should be. Every variable in Java should be Every variable in Java should be either primitive or reference. Every variable in Java should be either primitive or reference. Every variable in Java should be either primitive or reference. Should be either primitive or reference. Or reference. Are you getting right? Okay, this should be either primitive or reference. That's next. Hence variable various possible combinations of variables in Java are. Hence various possible combinations. Hence various possible combinations of variables in Java are. 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 Okay. Yeah, in Java are. Take this one. Take this diagram. Instance primitive, reference, static primitive, static reference, local primitive, local reference. Local primitive and local reference. Local primitive and local reference. Completed, right? Completed, I hope. Not required to keep much explanation. Okay, after that take this program or take this example. Completed, right? Okay. Next one. So this point is a bit important for you people anyway, right? Now the next terminology, and I take very special care about this one. Here now the next one, if it is related to array, how the behavior keeps happening? Uninitialized arrays. Uninitialized arrays. Uninitialized arrays. Uninitialized arrays. Okay, so this part also a bit important for you. Sir, I'm declaring an array but I'm not creating array, or I'm declaring an array but I'm not performing initialization. Like what will happen? Just observe. Sir, I'm taking class test. Now listen very carefully. Class test. Here int array x. Can you tell, is it instance variable, static variable or local variable? Instance. Is it primitive variable or reference variable? Reference variable, because x is array reference. Array is an object, that's why reference. Public static void main method. Public static void main method string array args. Okay, string array args. Here I am taking take int array x public static void main. Now my target here is, now listen very carefully about this one. Tester t is equal to new tester. Tester t is equal to new tester. Here SOP of t dot x, SOP of t dot x and SOP of t dot x of 0. Anna, SOP of t dot x, SOP of t dot x of 0, like I'm taking. This is my array. Can you tell what is the output we will get now? Sir, for instance variable, JVM will always provide default value. Can you tell what is the default value of x? Reference variable, right? What is the default value? Null reference variable. T dot x is nothing but what? What is the output we will get? Null. Now we are asking, null, what is the first element? Null, what is the first element? What thing we are going to get? Runtime exception saying null pointer exception. I hope clear, right? Sir, now observe. So if it is instance level, sir, I am taking instance level, just I declare an array, int array x, instance level int array x. Now system.out.println some object reference dot x, object reference dot x, system.out.println object reference dot x of 0. Sir, can you tell what the answer by default we will get now? Null. Second one, null pointer exception. Are you getting? Not required to keep much explanation, right? Let me execute up to this. 1 minute. Here, see. Here just I am taking int array x, that's all. Int array x. Within that, just all these things are not required. Int array x. Tester t is equal to new tester. Because instance variable we can access, you know. Next t dot x. Next t dot x of 0. T dot x of 0. Okay, now observe Java C tester.java. Next Java tester. The answer first time is what the answer, Anna? First time null, second time what the answer? Null pointer exception, right? But now I want to make a small change. What's my change is, listen this one. Sir, int array x. Instead of this line, I am taking int array x is equal to new int array of 3. Oh, the corresponding array object also we created. Array object. Now system.out.println obj.x, system.out.println obj.x of 0. Can you tell what the answer now? obj.x of 0. What the answer? obj.x. Because x already initialized, it is an object. That's why obj.x. So x is pointing to array object. Correct or not? X is pointing to array object. That's why whenever we are trying to print any reference variable, internally which method will be called? ToString method I covered already in the arrays. So square bracket I, class name @ 3e25a5, some number, hash code, some number. Okay, obj.x of 0. Have you remembered? Once we create an array, every array element by default initialized with the default values. What is the answer? obj.x of 0. What is the answer? 0, because the default value for int type. Default value for int type itself is nothing but 0. So here just observe, instead of just a declaration, let me create array object. Int array. Let me create array object. The code compiles fine. What the answer is? Square bracket I @ 8D00C6, some number followed by second one is what? 0. Clear for all of you, right? Okay, add. What heading you took? Can you spell up? Uninitialized arrays. First take this example. Take this example and then summary like you can take. Think very carefully what is the behavior like. So take clear like these. After taking this example, take these two things. I hope is that clear. Not required to keep much explanation. Completed, right? SOP of obj.x null, obj.x of 0, null pointer exception like. Next up, second part, here see, instead of instance level, let me take static level. And here see a small change. I want to make a small change. Sir, instead of instance level, I am taking what? Static level, second part. Listen. If it is a static, not required to use object reference, directly we can access. Correct or not? Sir, first one, static int array x. Second part, static int array x is equal to like. Sir, here observe system.out.println, directly we can access SOP of x and SOP of x of 0. Static variable, right? Here also SOP of x, SOP of x of 0. Sir, SOP of x, what is the answer? SOP of x, what is the answer? For static variables also, Chevium will provide what? Default value. That's why what answer we are going to get? Null. Next, SOP of x of 0. SOP of x of 0 is nothing but what is the answer? Runtime exception, null pointer exception. Now you are asking, oh null, what is your value like? Next, here array object created. Now I am trying to print object reference. If I am trying to print object reference, what will happen? Square bracket I @ some 3825 A5. Some number hash code, class name @ like. SOP of x of 0. Once we create an array, every element by default initialized with what? Default value. That's why like. Are you getting? Take this example. SOP of x and SOP of x of 0, like completed, I hope. SOP of x null, SOP of x of 0, null pointer exception. Static int array x is equal to new int array. Clear, right? This is the second. Second part we have. Okay, static level like this. Next, the third one, local level. Third, local level. Local level. Sir, inside a method I am taking an local level. Take very special care here, because local, the behavior is the different. I hope you know. Local level. Sir, if it is the local inside a method I am taking like this. Now SOP of x, what the answer? Local level, what the answer? Compile time error, because for local variable JVM won't provide any default values. That's why, do you know, in both cases we will get compile time error saying variable x might not have been initialized. Okay, like this. Now can you tell it the second one? What about in this case? Sir, x already created, x object, right, x is initialized. SOP of x, what the answer? Square bracket I @ 325fi, because x is already initialized with this object. Now SOP of x of 0, what the answer? SOP of x of 0, what the answer? Compile time error R0. Ayyo, oi local array. Compile time error R0. Okay, make sure the output by default we are going to get is 0. No problem. Once we create an array, every array element by default initialized with the default value, whether it is the local array, static array or instance array. X is the local variable, but x of 0 is the part of array object. Array property is going to be dominated. So once we create an array, every array element by default initialized with the default value, irrespective of whether it is instance or local or static. Are you getting at this point? At the point value. Okay, take this part and then at last I will give the note. Third one, local level. Third one, local level. Int array x. Variable x might not have been initialized. Variable x might not have been initialized, like compile time error. Might not have been initialized. Next, int array x is equal to new int array of 3, SOP of x. Completed, right? Clear, right? Okay. Now take a note about that point. Note. Once we create an array, once we create an array, every array element, once we create an array, every array element by default initializer with every array element by default initializer with default values. Every array element by default initializer with default values, irrespective of whether it is instance or static or local array, irrespective of whether it is instance or static or local array, irrespective of whether it is instance or static or local array, irrespective of whether it is instance or static or local array. That's all. Completed, right? So make sure these are things what you people should aware clearly, right? That's all. Not required to keep much explanation. This is about types of variables what we have. So instance variable, static variable, local variable. If we are initializing, if we are not initializing, what is the value and so on. That's all. Various types of variables.